Hi there. Welcome back to Soft Truths, the place where we unlearn the weight we were never meant to carry and relearn what it means to care for ourselves, not just others. I'm Grace, and today, we're going to talk about a truth that's as uncomfortable as it is necessary. What happens when saying no feels like betraying the people you love? If you've ever had that tight feeling in your chest right after you set a boundary, or if you've said no, and then spiraled into guilt for hours, even days, this episode is for you. The first no that shook me. I'll never forget the first time I told my mom, no. She called, asking if I could drive 3 hours to help her with something that truthfully she could have asked someone else to do. I had just come off a brutal week at work, barely sleeping, running on fumes and caffeine. I said, "Mom, I really can't this weekend. I need to rest." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. She didn't yell. She didn't guilt-trip me. But her disappointment radiated through the phone. And in that moment, I wasn't a grown woman protecting her peace. I was a little girl again, terrified that I had let my mother down. I spent the rest of the day questioning myself. Was I selfish? Cold? Had I changed? Why did doing the right thing for myself feel so wrong? Why saying no hurts so much? Let's talk about that. Why does saying no, a 2-letter word, carry the emotional weight of betrayal? Well, part of it is how many of us were raised. Especially if you grew up in a family or culture that praised selflessness, where helping others was the measure of your goodness, saying no becomes emotionally risky. It's not just declining a request, it's pushing against an identity you were trained to uphold. We internalize this message. Good people help. Good daughters say yes. Good friends show up no matter what. And when you start saying no, it feels like you're breaking a sacred rule. You're disrupting the emotional ecosystem that others have come to rely on, the one where your needs are always second. The emotional fallout of setting boundaries. Let me be honest with you. The first few times you start setting boundaries, it feels awful. Like, truly awful. Not because it's wrong, but because your body and brain have been conditioned to associate peace with people-pleasing. You'll find yourself rehearsing your boundaries in your head like a court defense. You'll explain too much. You'll apologize for simply prioritizing your health, your time, your sanity. And then there's the fear of being labeled. Difficult. Uncaring. Selfish. But here's the truth. You are not selfish for choosing yourself. You are responsible. You are awake. You are healing. The difference between betrayal and boundaries. Let's be clear. There's a difference between betrayal and boundaries. Betrayal is when you harm someone for your own benefit. Boundaries are when you protect your well-being without harming others, even if they don't like it. It's okay if someone is disappointed by your no. That doesn't make you cruel. That makes you human. In fact, the healthiest relationships, real, grounded, respectful ones, are built on mutual consent, not obligation. If someone can't love you unless you say yes all the time, is that love? Or is that control? When guilt creeps in. Let's pause here and talk about guilt. Guilt is a tricky little emotion. It masquerades as morality, but often it's just the ghost of old conditioning. Just because something feels bad doesn't mean it is bad. You're not betraying your loved ones by having limits. You're betraying yourself when you pretend to be okay with things that hurt you. Here's something I started practicing. Whenever I feel guilty for saying no, I remind myself that every time I say yes to someone else, I'm saying no to myself, and vice versa. The question becomes, who do I want to betray, them or me? And the answer, more often than not, needs to be neither, but if I must, I will no longer abandon myself. How to start saying no without falling apart. Here are a few gentle ways to start setting boundaries that feel authentic but firm. 1. Use kindness without apology. I really wish I could help, but I'm not able to this time. 2. Be clear and brief. That doesn't work for me, but I hope it goes well. 3. Use the delay method. Let me think about it and get back to you. Buy yourself emotional space. 4. Say no without over-explaining. Thanks for asking, but I'll have to pass. And remember, no is a complete sentence. You don't need to write an essay defending your boundaries. What you might lose, and what you'll gain. Yes, you might lose some people when you start saying no. People who only loved you when you were useful may drift away. And as painful as that is, it's also illuminating. It shows you who was there for the real you and who was there for the version of you that served them. But you'll gain so much more: self-respect, energy, clarity, inner peace, and most of all, your voice. Your life will no longer be filled with quiet resentment. You'll stop feeling like a stranger in your own schedule. And you'll start to recognize that your needs matter just as much as anyone else's. A gentle reminder for the responsible ones. If you're listening and thinking, "But they need me. I don't want to let anyone down." I see you. I hear you. I am you. But I promise you can still love people deeply and say no. You can still be dependable without being depleted. You can care for others without carrying them. You were not put on this earth to be a cushion for everyone else's discomfort. You were meant to live fully, freely, and with boundaries that honor the sacredness of your own time and energy. Final thoughts. From Grace with Grace. Saying no isn't betrayal. It's bravery. And if you've never been taught that, if you've never had anyone model what healthy boundaries look like, then I want you to know, you're breaking generational patterns just by listening to this. That's powerful. That's healing. That's legacy-level change. You don't have to be everything for everyone. You're allowed to choose yourself not as an act of rebellion, but as an act of remembrance. Remember who you are beneath the roles, the obligations, the constant yes. You are worthy, even when you say no. Thank you plus call to action. Thank you so much for being here with me today. If this episode resonated with you even just a little, please consider hitting that like button, subscribing, and leaving a quick review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It helps more than you know. And more importantly, it helps this message reach someone else who may be quietly struggling to say no when their soul is screaming for space. Until next time, stay soft, stay grounded, and remember, boundaries are not walls. They are bridges back to your truest self.